you listening to this right now, you are someone who probably manages a ton of complexity for a living.
Without a doubt.
Right. Like you build flawless roadmaps for your team at work, you troubleshoot logistics, you handle 100 moving pieces before lunch.
Yeah, your professional life is just this absolute masterclass in execution.
Exactly. But then, January 1st rolls around.
Ah, the classic trap.
Yeah, and you build this beautifully color-coded roadmap for your own personal life. You stock the fridge with fresh kale, you buy those premium running shoes, you set your alarm for 5 a.m.
And you feel that electric surge of momentum. It's a fantastic feeling, honestly.
Obviously is.
Your brain is basically flooding your system with optimism. You're riding this massive wave of high expectations, picturing, the future version of yourself who runs marathons and reads a book a week.
The launch sequence is spectacular.
It's perfect, yeah.
And yet, fast forward to, like, mid-February, you open the crisper drawer and that ambitious kale has turned into a deeply questionable green liquid.
Oh, we've all been there.
Your gym card is lost in the console of your car, and those expensive running shoes are basically acting as a very sporty doorstop.
Yeah, it's like all that professional execution you have at the office somehow just vanishes the second you try to apply it to your own personal habit.
Right. And why is that? It's because the heavy gravity of your old, deeply wired routines just pulls you right back down to earth.
Exactly. Staying in orbit requires a fundamentally different set of mechanics than launching.
Which brings us to what we're doing today. Welcome to the deep dive.
Thrilled to be here.
Our mission today is to equip you with the actual neurological and psychological tools to make your personal habits as bulletproof as your professional ones.
Because we are pulling apart the mechanics of behavior change. Specifically, we're looking at the foundational research of James Clear and really zeroing in on why we stick to some routines for decades while abandoning others after, 3 days.
Right. Think of habits as the compound interest of self-improvement. Just as atoms build molecules, atomic habits are these tiny, seemingly invisible building blocks that eventually yield massive, undeniable results.
There is this really vivid way to visualize this compounding effect. Imagine you're sitting in the cockpit of a plane, taking off from Los Angeles, heading for New York City.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
If the pilot adjusts the heading just 3.5 degrees south, which is barely a nudge of the steering column, maybe a few inches, the nose of the plane moves so slightly you wouldn't even feel it in the cabin.
Right, it feels like nothing changed.
Exactly. But magnified across the entire span of the United States, that tiny adjustment means you don't land in New York. You end up hundreds of miles away in Washington, D.C.
Wow. So a change that is 1% better or 1% worse seems completely meaningless in the moment?
Totally invisible.
Like eating a burger today doesn't make you out of shape tomorrow. Reading 10 pages tonight doesn't make you a genius by morning.
Yeah, but stretch that out over a lifetime, and those microscopic daily choices determine the vast chasm between who you are and who you could be. Outcomes are usually just a lagging measure of habits.
Which exposes the core friction we want to explore today. Because starting the habit isn't really the problem, is it?
No, not at all. I mean, you can white-knuckle your way through the first week of any new routine purely on motivation and willpower.
Just sheer stubbornness.
Right. But the real challenge is making it stick when the motivation inevitably evaporates, when you're stressed, when you're tired from work, when the weather's terrible.
So to survive that phase, we really have to look closely at the mechanics of how our brains actually process rewards, specifically in Chapter 15 of our source material.
Yes, that chapter is pivotal.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because there is a foundational premise here. It's often called the cardinal rule of behavior change, and it is ruthlessly simple.
Go for it.
Here it is. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided.
What's fascinating here is the massive evolutionary mismatch this rule exposes.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, human brains spent hundreds of thousands of years evolving in what anthropologists call an immediate return environment.
Okay.
If you were a hunter-gatherer on the savannah, you weren't agonizing over a 10-year retirement portfolio or a 6-month marathon training schedule.
No, you're just trying not to get eaten.
Exactly. You were focused on immediate survival, finding shelter from the storm happening right now, finding food for the hunger you feel right now.
So our neural architecture, specifically our dopamine system, became hardwired to heavily prioritize the present moment over the distant future.
Yes. It's the ultimate biological bias.
And it perfectly explains the friction you and I feel every single day. I mean, think about how effortless it is to scroll on a phone for an hour.
Well, too easy.
Right. You open an app, you swipe, you see something funny, boom. Immediate dopamine. The brain registers a reward in milliseconds and says, do that again.
But going for a run.
Ugh. You have to put on the gear, step out into the cold, your muscles ache, your lungs burn. In the immediate present, that registers to the brain as punishment.
Pure punishment.
Yeah.
Because the payoff, the glowing health, the cardiovascular endurance, that's months away.
So you're basically asking an ancient piece of hardware to endure tangible, immediate discomfort for a purely hypothetical, delayed future benefit.
Exactly. The brain's default, perfectly logical response is to conserve energy. It wants to sit on the couch and eat the high-calorie snack because the reward is guaranteed and immediate.
And almost every worthwhile achievement in the modern world, saving money, earning a degree, building a business, getting physically fit, operates in a delayed return environment.
We are constantly fighting our own evolutionary programming. We're asking a system built for the savannah to navigate the modern corporate and personal landscape.
And those who figure out how to navigate that landscape gain incredible advantage. There's a powerful quote from the text we need to highlight for you listening.
Oh, I know the one.
Quote, "The road less traveled is the road of delayed gratification. If you're willing to wait for the rewards, you'll face less competition. The last mile is always the least crowded."
The last mile is always the least crowded. That implies that if you could bridge this gap between the hard action today and the delayed reward tomorrow, you basically unlock a superpower.
You separate yourself from the pack. But it leaves us with a massive practical dilemma. If our biology demands immediate rewards, we can't just wish that wiring away.
No, you can't fight biology and win. We have to engineer a bridge.
How so?
We have to manufacture an immediate reward for a long-term behavior. If the natural reward is far away, we introduce an artificial immediate reward to satisfy the brain's craving for closure and satisfaction.
And the most accessible tool for that is visual proof of progress,
Yeah.
habit tracking.
Yes, tracking is huge.
But I am going to push back on this heavily because I know exactly how you listening might feel about this. You manage complex systems all day at work. You track KPIs, you update Jira tickets, you manage spreadsheets.
Oh, the spreadsheet fatigue is real.
Right. So doesn't setting up a personal tracking system just add another layer of administrative friction on top of a habit you are already struggling to do? Like, if I'm exhausted and fighting my biology just to drink water or read a book, how does forcing myself to maintain a journal make it easier?
That is such a valid point. And the answer is, if your tracking method feels like a chore, it will absolutely fail.
It just becomes another thing to do.
Exactly. It becomes the exact friction you are trying to eliminate. The mechanism here relies on simplicity. It should take virtually zero energy.
Give me an example.
Think of a physical wall calendar where you simply draw a thick red X on the days you complete your habit. The physical action takes what, 1 second?
Yeah, literally a second.
But the neurological impact is profound. We have to look at how dopamine functions. Dopamine isn't just about pleasure. It is the molecule of anticipation and motivation.
Oh, so it's the feeling you get right before you unwrap a gift, not just the feeling of getting the gift.
Exactly that. By marking an X on a calendar or moving a marble from one jar to another, you are giving your brain undeniable visual evidence that you are moving in the right direction.
You didn't lose 20 pounds today, but you got to draw the X.
Right. You have artificially manufactured an immediate reward. And psychologically, the most satisfying feeling in the human experience is the feeling of making progress.
So the visual streak itself effectively becomes the reward. I know from my own experience, I've had days where I didn't care at all about my long-term fitness goals, but I desperately wanted to draw that X so I didn't break a 10-day streak.
It's like a video game.
Yes.
When you see an experience bar filling up on the screen, you'll grind through tedious tasks just to hear the ding of leveling up. We're basically applying video game mechanics to our own lives.
There is a brilliant real-world application of this in the sources called the paperclip strategy.
Oh, Trent Deersmid, I love this story.
Yeah, so he was this highly successful stockbroker, and he started every single morning with 2 jars on his desk. One jar was filled with 120 paper clips. The other jar was completely empty. Every time he made a grueling, demoralizing cold haul, he moved one paper clip from the full jar to the empty jar. He didn't stop his workday until all 120 paper clips were moved.
It's so brilliant because he took the most friction-heavy, delayed gratification task imaginable, cold calling, where the financial reward might be months down the line, and attached a satisfying, immediate physical action to every single repetition.
He made the abstract concept of working hard visually measurable.
And that visual measurement triggers the dopamine hit required to keep the prefrontal cortex engaged. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, we run into a very dangerous phase of habit formation.
Uh-oh. What happens?
What happens when the metric you are so diligently tracking simply flatlines?
The plateau.
Yes, you are putting in the reps, you are moving the paper clips, you are eating whole foods and going to the gym, but the line on the graph stops moving.
The scale doesn't budge for 3 weeks. Your savings account growth stalls.
Right. This is what is known as the plateau of latent potential.
I love the analogy the author uses to explain this mechanism. Imagine an ice cube sitting on a table in a room that is 25 degrees.
Okay, cold room.
Right. You slowly heat the room. 26 degrees, 27 degrees, 28 degrees. You're putting in energy, you're doing the work, but the ice cube just sits there. Nothing is happening.
It looks like nothing is working.
Exactly. 29, 30, 31, still nothing. The visual evidence says your strategy is failing, but then you get 32 degrees and the ice begins to melt.
Wow.
The work you did at 26 degrees wasn't wasted. It was simply being stored as potential energy.
That is the perfect illustration of latent potential. The visible, measurable results are always delayed. But we live in a hyper-data-driven society.
We really do. Everything is tracked.
We're constantly surrounded by hard, quantified metrics: steps taken, calories burned, follower counts, quarterly profits. And because these numbers are so visible, we naturally tend to overvalue them.
We tie our entire emotional state to a single, hard metric.
Yep. And when that metric hits the plateau, the brain stops receiving its immediate reward and it signals you to quit.
Which brings up a crucial warning from the text. Just because you can measure something doesn't mean it's the most important thing. We mistakenly think that if the scale isn't moving, the health protocol is a failure.
But this is where you have to look for what are called non-scale victories.
The softer, more ephemeral metrics.
Right. Let's say you've been disciplined with your diet and exercise, but that stubborn number on the digital scale hasn't moved in a month. If your identity is tied exclusively to that number, your motivation collapses.
You just give up.
But what if you step back and look at the secondary indicators? Maybe your skin has completely cleared up. Maybe your baseline focus at work has sharpened. Or you are naturally waking up 30 minutes earlier feeling totally refreshed instead of groggy.
Or, maybe your sex drive got a massive boost. Those are incredibly valid biological signals of progress.
They are proof that the internal system is optimizing, even if the external metric hasn't caught up yet. The measurement is simply one piece of feedback in a larger system. It is not the system itself.
So if the metric you were tracking is causing you anxiety rather than satisfaction, you don't abandon the habit, you abandon the metric.
You find a different measurement that gives you those clear, undeniable signals of progress to keep the dopamine loop running. The tracker should serve your psychology. You shouldn't serve the tracker.
That requires a high degree of self-awareness. You have to actively curate your own feedback loops.
You really do.
So let's assume you, the listener, have all of this dialed in. You've accepted that you need immediate rewards. You have a simple, satisfying visual tracker like paper clips or a calendar. You are focusing on non-scale victories to survive the plateau.
Sounds like a perfect setup.
But then reality hits.
It always does.
You get a terrible flu, your car breaks down, you have to work a brutal 14-hour shift to hit a deadline, and your willpower drops to absolute zero. The chain gets broken, the streak dies.
Yeah, life happens.
How do we account for the reality of failure without the entire system completely unraveling?
By adhering to a very strict, yet oddly forgiving rule. Never miss twice.
Never miss twice. Now, I have to challenge the mechanics of this because on the surface, it sounds almost too simplistic.
Sure, how so?
Why is the second miss exponentially more dangerous than the first miss? Like, if I skip my workout on Tuesday and then I skip it again on Wednesday, aren't those just two identical, isolated events?
They feel isolated to your conscious mind, but neurologically, they are entirely different. We have to look at the process of automaticity.
Okay, break that down for us.
Whenever you perform an action, your brain sends a signal down a neural pathway. Every time that signal fires, the brain wraps a fatty substance called myelin around that specific pathway.
Like insulation on a wire.
Exactly. Myelination acts like insulation on a copper wire. It makes the signal travel faster and more efficiently.
It's the biological process of turning a conscious effort into an unconscious reflex, shifting the workload from the energy-hungry prefrontal cortex to the highly efficient basal ganglia.
Precisely. The first mistake The day you skip the gym because you are sick is just an anomaly. The heavily myelinated go to the gym pathway is still intact.
So one day doesn't ruin the wiring.
Right. Missing a single day has statistically zero impact on your long-term odds of maintaining a habit. But when you miss twice, you are no longer experiencing an anomaly.
What's happening then?
You are firing a new neural pathway. You are actively myelinating the behavior of not doing the thing.
Oh, wow. That completely shifts the perspective. Because habits are just repeated behaviors. By missing twice, you are quite literally practicing the habit of quitting.
You are training the basal ganglia to expect inaction.
You are. Remember the airplane route analogy from earlier? Just as getting 1% better compounds into remarkable results, making choices that are 1% worse compounds into a toxic trajectory.
The first miss is a slip. The second miss is a trend. You have to aggressively protect your trajectory, even if you can't protect your ego.
Here's where it gets really interesting for anyone listening who struggles with perfectionism. When you look at the research on how habits form, it turns out that the amount of time you perform a habit matters far less than the number of times you perform it.
Yes. Frequency absolutely trumps duration.
A habit becomes automatic through repetitions, not just the passage of time.
Which brings us to the concept of mastering the subtle art of showing up. There's a strategy here called the 2-minute rule.
I love this rule.
It's so practical. If your goal is to run 3 miles, but it is pouring rain, you are exhausted from back-to-back meetings, and you know with absolute certainty you are not going to run 3 miles.
You do not stay on the couch.
No, you scale the habit down until it takes exactly 2 minutes. You put on your running shoes, you walk out your front door, you stand on your porch in the rain for 2 minutes, and then you turn around and go back inside.
Now, to a high-achieving professional, that sounds absurd.
Completely absurd, yeah.
Like, why expend the energy to put on the shoes if you aren't going to actually do the workout? It feels fundamentally unproductive.
It feels pointless because we are obsessed with the physical output. But the output doesn't matter yet. Psychologically, doing that 2-minute routine is the most important thing you can possibly do.
Because you are casting a vote for your identity.
Identity voting. That is the core mechanism. Every action you take is a subconscious vote for the type of person you are. Your brain tallies those votes to form your self-esteem and your self-image.
Exactly. If you stay on the couch, you cast a vote for, I am the type of person who quits when things get hard.
Right. But if you put on the shoes and stand on the porch, even for 2 minutes, you are casting a vote for, I am the type of person who does not miss workouts.
You are keeping the chain alive. A habit must be established before it can be improved. You have to standardize before you can optimize.
If you can't master the basic fundamental skill of just showing up, you have absolutely zero hope of mastering the finer details of the routine later.
It changes your entire definition of a successful day. A successful day is no longer defined by hitting a personal record or achieving a flawless performance.
A successful day is simply a day where you protected the system, a day where you did not miss twice.
So what does this all mean for you listening? We've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, moving from evolutionary biology to the neuroscience of habit tracking.
It's a lot to process, for sure.
But the takeaway is clear. If you want to build personal habits that execute as flawlessly as your professional projects, you have to stop relying on motivation and start acknowledging your biology.
You must engineer your good habits to be immediately satisfying. Use a simple, low-friction visual tracker like marking an X on a calendar to give your brain that crucial dopamine hit of anticipation and progress.
Furthermore, don't allow a single stubborn metric to dictate your emotional state. If the hard numbers hit the plateau of latent potential, actively seek out non-scale victories to maintain your momentum.
The ice is absorbing energy, even if it hasn't started melting yet.
And most importantly, when life inevitably throws a wrench in your plans and you stumble, abandon perfectionism instantly. Just ensure you never miss twice. Protect the neural pathway.
Show up for 2 minutes if you have to, cast a vote for your identity, and protect the frequency of the behavior above all else.
If we look at the ultimate horizon of this philosophy, it reveals that true long-term thinking is actually goalless thinking.
Yes, it is not about crossing a finish line or hitting a quarterly target. It is about committing to a system of continuous refinement.
You aren't just trying to read a book, you are actively myelinating the pathways to become a reader.
You aren't trying to run, you are becoming a runner. When your behaviors become a natural expression of your identity, the need for intense willpower simply falls away.
It becomes who you are rather than a task you have to manage. I want to leave you with a final lingering thought drawn from these concepts. We spend so much of our modern lives trying to eliminate friction.
Oh, constantly.
Right. We buy conveniences, we optimize our schedules, we design our environments to reach this perpetual state of comfort and zen. But there is a brutal truth buried in the mechanics of human behavior. Suffering drives progress.
That's a heavy thought. The fundamental source of all suffering is simply the desire for a change in state. We crave for things to be different than they currently are.
But that exact same craving is the engine of all human achievement. Without craving, we lack ambition. With craving, we are dissatisfied, yes, but we are driven to act.
So true.
So look at the areas in your own life where you feel a deep, nagging sense of dissatisfaction right now, the habits you keep failing to build. Instead of trying to mindlessly numb that dissatisfaction by scrolling on your phone or distracting yourself with more work, what if you recognized it as a feature rather than a bug?
What if that visceral feeling of disappointment is the exact evolutionary fuel you need to spark your next atomic habit?
It completely reframes the concept of failure.
It really does.
Think back to that sad liquid kale sitting in the crisper drawer in mid-February. Maybe that moment of failure isn't the end of the road. Maybe that intense frustration is exactly the craving you need to finally stop relying on fragile motivation and start building a biological system that actually works.